What is going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today I wanted to showcase Shadow Rhyperior in the Open Master League. This is one of the strongest Pokemon in the entire game, having ground, rock, and dragon type coverage. It is perfect for the Master League right now, and having debuff potential, having fast move pressure, a lot of energy generation, and a hard-hitting nuke move, this Pokemon is ridiculous. If you want to see my battles live, I stream almost every single day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN. You can see live insights into my gameplay and see my teams early. If you want to check out my battles live, the link is in the description. But without further ado, let's get into the battles and see what this team can do. Alright, game number one, we are going to see our Yveltal in the lead up against a Necrozma. This is a very good lead matchup, not only for our Yveltal, but also our Shadow Rhyperior in the backline. So if they swap out and I can bring in my Dialga, I don't really need Switch here. I'm just using my Dialga as a way to neutralize this Palkia. They are going to throw a Charge Move. I think I can survive a Spatial Rent from this range. I'm fine no-shielding, getting the Iron Head off. And if this is an Aqua Tail bait, which it looks like this is going to be one, we are going to be in a very good position where not only will we not have to go down shields, but might even keep Switch advantage this game. Iron Head going to come through, get that shield from the Palkia, and now they can probably reach another Spatial Rent here if they want to. We're just going to no-shield at this point. We have two very strong answers to Necrozma. I'm not that worried about Switch. Our opponent actually goes for an Aqua Tail, we call it, and they end up top lefting early that game. Yeah, that's a bit of a hard thing to come back from there. GG's to them. Next game up against Home Slice Henry, it looks like. A Palkia in the lead up against our Yveltal. This is a very neutral lead matchup here, but this is really good to keep it away from potentially our Rhyperior. At least if it has energy lead, they could potentially one-shot me. So I'm happy to neutralize this, maybe get a shield advantage here for the backline, and maybe have some play later on in this game. Oblivion Wing number one does end up getting a shield here from our opponent. They do have the potential as Spatial Rend, but I know I survive an Aqua Tail, and I might even be able to get another Oblivion Wing off before they can get off their next move. They end up trying to farm us all the way down here. Fantastic news for us. They could have actually gone for an Aqua Tail before that if they wanted, but they risked the full farm down. Unfortunately for me, I do get two shields from this Palkia. They come in and throw a charge move before swapping out, or potentially they're just going to let me farm them all the way down on this Palkia. Aqua Tail bait, that's a crazy bait by our opponent. We end up seeing them swap out to Necrozma though, and at this point, I know it could potentially be a Landorus in the backline. Either Landorus or Zacian is very likely right now. That is a team that I've used myself. We'll have to see if that's what Home Slice Henry is running here. Rockwrecker ends up nearly knocking out, but not quite. I can't shield this. I need shield advantage on my Dialga just in case it is going to be something like that Landorus later on. And Steel Strike does end up doing a massive amount of damage here, and in comes the Landorus as my opponent's final Pokemon. This is going to be a little bit annoying because I wouldn't be able to outpace him to Roar of Time. It would have been a CMP, which we would have lost, so I'm going to shield this up over from a little bit just in case we need to get to an Iron Head against that Palkia later on, and at this point, it's going to be a race to see either if I can farm him down or if I can reach an Iron Head before a Spatial Rend is going to be reached. This Roar of Time will come through, get the knockout despite being debuffed, and in comes the Palkia. We go for the full farm down, and we take the win that game. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, Yveltal up against a Tapu Bulu. You might expect this to be a pretty bad matchup, right? We have a Dark type in the lead that's weak to Fairy. We have a Dragon type in the back as well, and also a Ground and Rock type that really doesn't want to take any Grass type damage. But honestly, this matchup in the lead is not all that bad. We can survive one Nature's Madness. These fast moves aren't doing too much to us, and our Sucker Punches and our Oblivion Wings would do quite a bit to them. They end up swapping out to Kyogre as well, which is looking very good for us right now. We can switch lock our Dialga in here. If they want to shield up a Roar of Time, they can be my guest. I can shield once and farm them all the way down. And if they end up no-shielding this, then I just take out their Kyogre without them getting much off with this Kyogre here. They end up shielding, which is fine by me. Our opponent also does already have two answers for our Shadow Rhyperior, so if I can take this out, and if I can also potentially take out that Tapu Bulu, hopefully our Shadow Rhyperior is going to have some play. We ended up properly shielding up that Blizzard. Honestly, these waterfalls and these this surf that they are going to reach, doing quite a bit of damage to us, so despite the fact we have a lot of resistance against Kyogre, still able to put in a lot of work against a matchup that you might not expect to be all that good for Kyogre. In comes their final Pokemon, going to be a Landorus coming in here, so this opponent does not want anything to do with a Rhyperior. The thing is, I know I have a lot of energy on our Yveltal right now. I can go for an Oblivion Wing, and I know I can go for another one before they reach a Stone Edge. If they throw a Charge Move on CMP, which it looks like they do, then I know for a fact that's just a Sandsear Storm. We can no-shield this, probably even undercharge our Oblivion Wing to give our Rhyperior a potential farm down here later on this game. I don't want to give the Tapu Bulu too much extra energy. That's like the one thing I don't want to have happen. We undercharge, we get our Yveltal down to 1 HP here. Hopefully only one Bullet Seed is going to come through from this Tapu Bulu, and they don't get too much energy, which means we will be able to outpace before they can reach two Grass Knots to get to a Rockwrecker. The only thing we have to keep in mind is they do have a catch potential available to them this game, so I'm going to make sure that before I throw my Rockwrecker, we see that they do another Bullet Seed, which they do end up throwing the Bullet Seed. We can throw the Rockwrecker here. No catch was incoming. This Rockwrecker is easily going to knock out this Grass type, so we take out this Pokemon, we take out the Kyogre. Somehow, I guess Rhyperior just taking out two very strong answers to our Rhyperior, right? The Kyogre and the Tapu Bulu. Next game, we're going to see a very tricky lead matchup, actually. The Zacian is one of the worst leads we could probably see, just because obviously they could have close combat, and they also hardwall all of our energy, or our fast move damage, rather, on Yveltal. They end up coming in with an Yveltal of their own to try to answer our Rhyperior. We go for a very bold Breaking Swipe bait, and we do end up getting it off here, which is going to be helpful. They throw a charge move. I know it's debuffed. It's going to be a Dark Pulse, or maybe it's a Focus Blast. That'd be kind of crazy. No, it's just a Dark Pulse here, and a Rock Wrecker is going to be reached. So either we're going to get both shields, or we will get shield and switch advantage because of how strong Shadow Rhyperior is right now. They end up shielding that move, which is a little bit awkward now, I guess. They get a huge farm down here. I can come in Yveltal, though. They are debuffed since I threw that move, and in comes their final Pokemon, going to be a Dialga. This is going to be an interesting game, right? We obviously know there is still that Zacian in the backline, but I don't have a great answer to it, even though I did have the ability to flip switch advantage, I guess, this game. They end up going into Dialga here and trying to farm us all the way down, but they can't farm us down before we can Sucker Punch them down. So if I can potentially go for my Dialga 2 shields to 0, maybe I can win this game. Ironhead ends up getting the knockout against us here, and now I'm going to have to hope Dialga has enough in the tank right now to be able to close out this matchup. Our opponent did save a lot of health and energy on this Yveltal, just in case they do have close combat on that Zacian. I'm going to have to no-shield this, at least the first one here. I'm not going to be able to shield, and if I can knock them out with an Ironhead before they're going to be able to get to another charge move, then I have 2 shields against 0 against the Zacian. I think we can win this game, but if they survive this, and they get another charge move off, which is exactly what happens here, our opponent is going to have a lot of play still left over right now. I'm going to shield this up, and I'm hoping that they are running double nukes on Zacian. If they have Wild Charge and Close Combat, then I win this game. If they have Play Rough, then they win this game. Reason being that despite the nukes being a little bit cheaper, they lower their defense stat. If they have to lower their defense, I know Ironhead knocks out, but if they have Play Rough, like our opponent does have right here, they are going to be able to survive this Ironhead, and I won't be able to farm them down before they reach another charge attack against us. Ironhead comes through, it does a lot of super effective damage, but Dragon Breath not quite enough to close out this game. Our opponent going to be able to take this matchup from us with a Wild Charge into our Dialga. Unfortunately, GG's to them. Was hoping for the double nukes, but well played nonetheless to our opponent. All right, we have a Kyogre in the lead this time. One of the best leads we could see, not because Yveltal is good against it, but more so because Shadow Rhyperior is just so bad against it that anytime you get to see a Kyogre, rather than having it against our Rhyperior, we are in a very good spot. Oblivion Wing going to come through. If they let this go, I can shield once, Sucker Punch all the way down because of how slow Kyogre is, and because of how powerful Yveltal's fast moves are. They do end up throwing a Surf here, or potentially a Thunder if they wanted to throw that. They're not getting to 2 moves. They do go for Thunder. I think a Surf probably would have been enough there, but they end up throwing the big attack anyway because they don't get to 2. In comes a Primarina. We have the ability to go for an Oblivion Wing here. This is going to do over half of their health at this point, put them into range where we can Mud Slap them all the way down. Our opponent hasn't swapped out yet, potentially a Palkia in the backline. I've seen triple water like that quite a bit. Our opponent does not even reach a Hydro Cannon. We have so much energy loaded, it looks like they top left there. GG's. Alright, next matchup, Yveltal up against a Kartana. That's a fantastic lead. Once again, a Pokemon that we are so happy that our Rhyperior gets to avoid. They save swap into a Pokemon we don't have a hard answer for though, right? Kind of funny, I'm making a video showcasing Shadow Rhyperior. We don't even have a Rhyperior answer on this team. I'm going to shield, hoping that they don't bait us. Rock Wrecker does end up coming through. Luckily, we did end up shielding properly. Dark Pulse won't one-shot them from this range, obviously, but it is going to put them into Sucker Punch down range. If it ends up landing, our opponent realizes that, and they don't want to sacrifice their Rhyperior just yet. We do have access to, obviously, resisting these ground-type fast moves here, which is why Yveltal's not terrible in this matchup. But if they bait like they did here, it can get a little bit interesting. They could outpace us to that third move, but they've been throwing on kind of bad timing this entire game. And also at this point, I know that we've been able to at least shield up one Rock Wrecker. We should be able to get to the next move here. They make a fantastic catch, though, on their Kartana, which is a good catch, I guess, in a way. But we have to keep in mind, that energy that they have on Rhyperior is not all that useful in the backline. Might even be able to get a full Sucker Punch down here. They could probably reach either a Leaf Blade, Night Slash, maybe X-Scissor or Aerial Ace, depending on what moveset they're running here. Whatever they end up throwing, though, we should survive. Night Slash is going to be reached. I think a Leaf Blade probably would have done a little bit more damage, but Night Slash is probably the best case scenario, though, there for us. They come in with a Palkia, and at this point, I can get an Oblivion Wing off. This will put them down to about half health after the Sucker Punches before I end up getting fast move farm down by them. And I can come in here with my Dialga, and then use my Rhyperior as a way to sponge energy from their own Rhyperior. At this point, I know I survive a Spatial Rend. It does a lot of damage, but it's neutral damage, and I have bulky Dialga. This Pokemon is so bulky that we can survive that attack. Try to farm them down, but they end up coming with Rhyperior. We can easily absorb any move that they throw. They haven't been able to... Actually, no, they did reveal their moveset. They're not even running Surf, so if they did have Surf, they could potentially one-shot us, but no Surf from our opponent here. We end up winning that game because we were able to use our Rhyperior so effectively. Alright, next game, a Landorus in the lead. The more interesting of the ground types, I guess, in this meta right now. Obviously, it does have access to Stone Edge, but it is going to be a little bit weak to our Yveltal just because we resist their fast move pressure, and we don't quite get one-shot. You know, I have a very strong answer here to this Zacian, so I'm going to come in after going for a debuff, or a nuke move, rather, with my Oblivion Wing into this Zacian, go into my Rhyperior. We end up no-shielding a close combat. It does way too much damage right now. I have to shield the next. Luckily, we won't get fast move farm down, and we will have energy for the backline, but this is looking a little bit tricky if they get a lot of energy left over on that Landorus. In comes that Landorus. Here we go for a very bold Breaking Swipe bait. Rockcracker would probably do like 80% of their health, though, so I think they're going to be forced to shield, which fortunately for us they are, and we get another Rockcracker, or Breaking Swipe rather, off, which is going to be able to at least strip them down a little bit here. I got a debuff on them, so this Stone Edge is not going to one-shot or Yveltal if they end up throwing it. Maybe they clear their debuff, though, or maybe they will just throw instantly to see if I'm going to no-shield. What do they have on the back is always going to be the big question here this game. I know this is a Stone Edge at the very worst, but it's a debuffed Stone Edge. It's going to do less damage than one later this game. Stone Edge doesn't do all that much damage, right? We have enough health that we can easily survive moves. In comes their Palkia, and at this point, I think we're in a pretty good spot. As long as we keep our Dialga alive, I can either go for the Dragon Breath down against their Landorus, or I can potentially just land a charge move on them later on, depending on how they're going to play out this matchup. I have the Iron Head loaded in just a second, but I go for the full farm down instead, knowing that if this energy in the backline is going to be shielded from this Landorus, they'll have to outpace us to a Sandsear Storm before we're going to get to 2 if they want to stay alive, and if they throw a Sandsear Storm, then our Yveltal should be able to knock them out with the energy that we have stored. Our opponent doesn't even reach the charge move here. Iron Head number 2 going to come through, knock out this Landorus, and take us the game there. VGs to our opponent. Let's see what our Yveltal can see in this next one. Gonna be a Melmetal? What the heck? That's a terrible matchup, actually. Wait, that's so problematic, actually. We're a little bit ABA weak to this Pokemon. We do have our Shadow Rhyperior that does have ground-type damage, but Melmetal notoriously runs moves such as Superpower, maybe Double Iron Bash or Flash Cannon as well, so it has super effective coverage for our ground-type. This is a little bit awkward. I'm expecting at least some sort of answers to our Shadow Rhyperior in the backline, and if that is the case, we might be in a pretty bad spot right now. They have Thunderbolt as well. If it was like Superpower Double Iron Bash, maybe we would have had a little bit more play, but having Thunderbolt does so much raw damage here. There's a Double Iron Bash, so I guess, wait, our Dialga actually resists every move that this thing has, right? So we can go for the farm down here potentially, and maybe have some play with energy with our Dialga in the back line, but this is awkward because you will get to 2 charge moves here. Double Iron Bash isn't actually that strong of an attack. It's basically like a Dragon Claw clone, so it doesn't have any special effects, just kind of a weak 35 energy move, but it is chipping us down into the range where I'm in more of an uncomfortable health range than I'd like to be. They come in with their own Dialga. I'm going to go straight for the Roar of Time, get a guaranteed shield, but they are ABA weak to our Rhyperior, ABA weak to ground-type damage. They have to have an answer to us in the backline, and there it is. Unfortunately, our opponent is not punished this game for being ABA weak to ground-type, because my ground-type was in the backline. They won switch advantage, and they're going to be able to take me out here, dude. That is kind of frustrating. I can't believe that is what our opponent was running. In comes our Dialga. We do get the Dragon Breath down before Surf's going to be reached, but I don't think that's going to matter. At this point, I think we just get Dragon Breath down by their Dialga before we're going to be able to get to 2 charge moves here. If I went for an Iron Head earlier, maybe we could have got to 2 more here, but even then, it would have been kind of close if that would have knocked out, so, I mean, what else am I supposed to do against a Melmetal? That's crazy, man. Our next game, an Yveltal into Yveltal mirror matchup here. If they are running the active Best Buddy, which it looks like they are, their CP is higher than mine, then that means that they will always win CMP, which is a little bit awkward, honestly, but I'm going to go for the Oblivion Wing anyway. I know I can survive an Oblivion Wing from them, so it's going to do a lot of damage, but it's going to put them into a much more manageable health range for either our Rhyperior or our Dialga later on. Oblivion Wing comes through, our opponent opts to shield it, and since that's the case, I know I'm going to just lose that matchup the longer it goes. I'm going to hard pivot to my Shadow Rhyperior, get a lot of energy. If they want to throw a move, that's fine. I'll shield it up, and I'll use all of this energy that I have potentially into the backline matchup. They end up staying in for just a second here. I'm going to throw the Rock Wrecker if I can at the last second. Our opponent makes a nice catch on Necrozma, but I mean, it's still a Necrozma. They're going to be weak to Mud Slap. This is going to do so much damage to them. I can probably just shield and farm them all the way down at this point, or maybe even throw energy if I wanted to, but I think I'm going to be more fine just going for the farm down, having this energy for the back line. This is looking much better than you might expect, despite them catching a move. I have almost 100 energy on our Rhyperior right now. What is going to come in right now? Rhyperior is loaded. It is ready to go. What am I going to one-shot? I guess I don't one-shot this, actually. They do end up resisting these rock-type moves on this Dialga, but it's still going to do a good 35-40% of their health. I'll get another Mud Slap in, and I'll get another Rock Wrecker through. If our opponent doesn't shield this, I think our Dialga at this point can just fast move everything down. They let that go. I'm going to swap out. Don't give them the farm down. In comes Yveltal. I know they will get to 1 charge move, but will they get to a second? If they do that, it could be a little bit uncomfortable because our Dialga will go down, but I still have access to my own Yveltal that will be able to finish off this game if I can whittle down this Yveltal enough to put it into Sucker Punch down range. Their Dialga is so low at this point, they won't reach an Iron Head before I'm able to Sucker Punch down. If that's what this game's going to come down to, which it looks like it is, we are able to get this thing into Sucker Punch range, and then we'll have energy, or just even fast move down both the Yveltal and the Dialga later on. Our opponent ends up coming in with Dialga. We reach the charge move here at the last second, and we can win the game just with fast move pressure using our Dialga and Yveltal. with all the damage our freaking Shadow Rhyperior did. That's kind of crazy, right? That was resisted damage it did against that Necrozma, resisted damage against the Dialga, but it just has so much play despite that because of the shadow damage and just how powerful its moveset is. In the next game up against a Origin Form Dialga, a Pokemon that we do have a good answer for with our Shadow Rhyperior, but I think at this point we have to just stay in the lead. I'm going to go for these Dark Pulses. If they no-shield the first one, then I can actually shield it once, farm all the way down, have a lot of energy for the backline, and hopefully have a lot of play. Our opponent ends up going for an Iron Head, obviously. They probably don't want to go for like a Thunder or a Roar of Time. They want to try to get the Iron Head, but they don't quite reach it at the last second. They bring in a Ho-Oh here, a Pokemon we don't have a hard answer to. Well, I guess that's a lie. We do have our Shadow Rhyperior, but we have to keep in mind that they could have Solar Beam, which would do a lot of damage. If they stay in, then I'm going to have to respect it at this point. They do build up to 4. They give me a full-on Mudslap Sneak. It seems like they're a little bit desperate to get rid of our Rhyperior right now, so I know I want to shield this. That's a Solar Beam. That would have one-shot us. Very happy I shielded. I am down 2 shields to 0 right now, but this is still fine. I can go for these Breaking Swipes. We have so much energy left over on our Rhyperior that I'm not all that worried right now. They come in with their final Pokemon, gonna be an Yveltal. This is why we have so much energy, right? We can go just for Charge Move spam at this point. Double shielding our Rhyperior is gonna be such a good position to be in right now because we have so much energy. This Breaking Swipe potentially could get a debuff, could get a shield. Even if they no shield, it's gonna put them into fast move farm down range for a Dialga. They opt to shield that move up, and now they are gonna throw energy at the last second before we can get that Rock Wrecker off, unfortunately for us, but this is still gonna be fine. They have to expend a lot more energy than they'd like to. I can come in Dialga, and they are debuffed right now, I believe, on their Yveltal. I think that one of those got the debuff, which it looks like our opponent realizes not much they can do there. GG's to them. Next game, Yveltal into Necrozma. Very good lead matchup. Obviously, we have our Rhyperior once again in the backline that we can use. Our opponent ends up safe swapping a Shadow Dragonite, a Pokemon that does have a lot of play into Dialga, at least more than you might expect for a lot of Dragon types, because they have access to Superpower. With that said, if I shield once, I think I can farm this all the way down, because this is a Shadow Dragonite. Very squishy Pokemon. We do get that full farm down against them, and if they come back in Necrozma, I have Roar of Time that's going to do a lot of damage. If they come in with anything else, I guess we'll play it by ear and see what it's going to be. In comes that Necrozma, we might as well go for the Roar of Time, get as much damage as we can against them. If they let this go, it does over half of their health, I think, or at least close to it. Yeah, no, that is over half their health. That's crazy. Resisted damage here coming in from our Dialga, but we are able to either get this Iron Head off or force energy from them before we can quite get the farm down. In comes probably a Dark Pulse, maybe an Iron Head. We'll get to see the moveset. Okay, it's going to be an Iron Head, which means we get our own Iron Head off here. That is fantastic, and now since we know their moveset, it's probably going to be Outrage as well. They won't have a Sunsteel Strike to one-shot our Necrozma potentially, or our Yveltal rather, from that Necrozma. In comes a Palkia as their final Pokemon. A pick that could be a little bit awkward here, but since they only got 1 Dragon Breath of advantage, I know I still outpaced the 2 Breaking Swipes with our Rhyperior, and we have so much fast move pressure left over with our Shadow Rhyperior and over with our Yveltal at this point. The first Breaking Swipe does not end up debuffing, but I don't think that's really going to end up mattering. We don't get fast move farm down by them one way or another right now. This next Breaking Swipe going to come through and likely draw the second shield. Once again, no debuff though it looks like, but they are forced to throw energy to knock out our Shadow Rhyperior. With that said, our Yveltal is still extremely healthy at this point. We can likely go for the fast move farm down against this, and then farm down or reach a charge move against that Necrozma, our opponent realizing not much play that they have left that game. Next matchup, a Ho-Oh in the lead. Honestly, a bit of an awkward lead matchup here, just because if they go for a Sacred Fire and they get a debuff, then I don't quite get the farm down that I like to, but I mean, these Sucker Punches and my Charge Moves here are going to do a lot of damage to them. They build up to 4 and then they throw instantly, which means this is likely going to be a Sacred Fire. If it gets the debuff, I guess we'll see how we want to play it. If they don't, then we're in a very good spot. They do end up getting that attack drop, which is a little bit problematic, but Oblivion Wing going to come through, do a sizable chunk, probably still get the 2-shot against them despite the debuff, and we are able to outpace them to that second Charge Move, luckily. This Oblivion Wing is going to do a lot of damage. It will knock them out if they end up letting it go. What do they want to do? They end up shielding the attack here, which is fine by me, and they let us get a couple extra Sucker Punches through before throwing a Charge Move. I'm expecting a Brave Bird right now. That is exactly what they throw. I can come in Rhyperior, get a big farm down against the Flying type Pokemon, and see what they want to bring in. They bring in, that is kind of terrible actually, a Zarude here. Much respect to this trainer. I love Zarude. This is a very cool Pokemon, but a very bad thing for us to see. Rock Wrecker ends up landing though, doing almost 75% of that Zarude's health in the backline. Going to be a Necrozma. This is going to be a very tricky game to win, but it is still very winnable, I think. If we end up shielding up properly here, this could be an Outrage or a Sunsteel Strike. We shield an Outrage, fantastic. That's going to be a lot of energy down the drain for our opponent. And if I can go for a Roar of Time, and if this is enough to knock out, if it goes through the shield, maybe there's still a chance for us to win this one. Roar of Time ends up landing, getting the knockout against Necrozma, and now that Zarude is in a very tight position. They have to land 2 Charge Moves against it to knock us out, and if they can reach 2 Charge Moves, they're not going to have enough energy to knock out a Rhyperior before Fast Moves are just going to be able to take them down here. I don't know how we just won that one. Lucky that I was able to land that Roar of Time, but GG's to our opponent. Next game, a Landorus in the lead. Once again, we resist these fast moves. Stone Edge could do a massive amount of damage, though, so I have to respect it potentially if they build up to it. They throw after 7, that is potentially a Stone Edge. I'm going to shield this up. If it's a bait, well played by them. If it's not, then I'm very happy I shielded. Yep, it is going to be a straight up Stone Edge. They come in with Squishy Dialga, and the fun fact about this is our first time seeing this. No matter what, if it's Squishy or bulky Dialga, you can shield once with Rhyperior, with Shadow Rhyperior, that is, farm them all the way down with Mud Slaps, and have basically 100 energy coming out of this matchup. It's kind of disgusting. Look at that. We don't even end up throwing a charge move here. We get the full farm down against them. In comes a Landorus once again. We have Rock Wrecker, which should put them, at this point, it should knock them out because of all the fast move pressure I got against them. They're forced to shield once. They're going to be forced to shield a second time here. And at this point, I still have energy on my Yveltal. I have my Dialga that gets to avoid a Landorus. I should be in a pretty good spot here. They swap out to a Charm Primarina. This is a bit of a tricky Pokemon to see, but I have so much play with our Yveltal left over this game that I'm in a pretty good spot here once again. Iron Head going to come through. It doesn't get a one-shot. It's not a Pokemon weak to Iron Head because obviously the water typing makes it so Steel is not super effective against the fairy typing anymore. In comes the charge move, likely a Disarming Voice, and it will chip us down, but honestly at this point, as long as I can put them into Mud Slap down range, we still have our Yveltal for that Landorus, we should be able to win this game. In comes Rhyperior here, able to Mud Slap all the way down before they're able to reach another charge move or farm us down, and we are also able to reach a Breaking Swipe in the last second. This move is not going to matter too much. We have energy on Yveltal that would knock out anyway, but I do love seeing a Breaking Swipe come through into that Landorus. In comes our final charge move of the game, Oblivion Wing going to come through, knock out the Landorus, and take the win for us this game. GG's to them. All right, next matchup, Yveltal. What is it going to see this time? It is matched up into a Shadow Ho-Oh. We just saw the regular Ho-Oh play out when they got a debuff against us, but I think that the Shadow Ho-Oh is actually going to be a lot easier to deal with just because of how much more damage my Sucker Punches and my Oblivion Wings potentially could do. They end up throwing on 5 here, or throwing 5 Incinerates. They're going to be at 100 energy right now, which means that they have to throw on bad timing or go over 100 energy right now. Opponent opts to throw on bad timing so they don't overfarm too much, and it's likely going to be a Sacred Fire. Hopefully no debuff. This time no debuff comes through, and since that happens, and this is a Shadow, I think that this Oblivion Wing likely is going to knock them out here. Oblivion Wing ends up getting shielded, and that is fine by me. I'm always so happy to have my Rhyperior or my Dialga up shields, and look, in comes their own Dialga. We might even be able to see it once again. Shield once, farm all the way down, have 100 energy for the backline. This Shadow Rhyperior's Mud Slaps are absolutely unfair right now. Iron Head ends up getting shielded up. Dialga is a little bit slow to get into these charge moves. We get that full farm down once again. This Pokemon is just kind of stupid. If they come in with that Ho-Oh, I want to one-shot them. I don't want to give them any chance to get the energy off. I am throwing my Rock Wrecker as soon as we can. In comes a Palkia. Rock Wrecker, despite not being super effective, is going to do way more damage than a Breaking Swipe would do, so I'm very happy I was still able to land that there. Breaking Swipe is also loaded. I had 90 energy, just enough energy to throw this Breaking Swipe. It gets the knockout. Dude, that Palkia had nowhere to go this game. They throw energy, unfortunately, against our Rhyperior. Not able to quite get that Rhyperior sweep, but I know at this point, I'm coming with my Yveltal. Oh, they go for a Sacred Fire. What? We survived that? I don't think that's supposed to happen. Well, I'll take it. Breaking Swipe able to finish off the game, give us a full Shadow Rhyperior sweep. GG's to our opponent, but this Pokemon is kind of stupid. I kind of love it, though, in a weird way. All right, next matchup, Tapu Bulu. Very good matchup, at least to see in the lead here. Gets to avoid our Shadow Rhyperior potentially, but if they're running like a triple counter to Rhyperior team, once again, that could be a little bit awkward. They end up throwing after 5, good timing by our opponent. Nature's Madness doesn't one-shot us, but it does put us pretty low, so if they want to swap out and try to farm us down with something, we need to keep that in mind. In comes the Palkia this time. We have our Dialga that we can bring in, either farm them all the way down, or maybe try to get a shield with an Iron Head, see what they're going to do. Maybe I can shield this, maybe I'm going to call this. It's always a very risky call, but I call the Aqua Tail once again here. I'm going to throw the Iron Head before they can reach another charge move, just so I can keep my Dialga somewhat healthy. If they want to bring back in that Tapu Bulu, they have to throw Nature's Madness. If they bring in anything else, we'll play it by ear. That is not what we want to see. My opponent using my Pokemon against me right now, Shadow Rhyperior, against our Dialga, gets that full farm down right before the Iron Head is going to be reached, and in comes our own Rhyperior right now. This game is looking a little bit awkward, but I think there is a chance for us right now, because I can go and survive a move here, likely. Yeah, they go for a Breaking Swipe, and now in comes that Tapu Bulu. I have energy on my Landorus, or on my Yveltal rather, and I have this Rock Wrecker that I can throw against them, get a shield, and now as long as I can outpace them before they can get to 2 more Nature's Madness, I should be able to win this one. Oblivion Wing comes through, ends up getting the shield here. Is my opponent going to be able to get a second Nature's Madness? So I know that they have energy on that Rhyperior. They have a full-on Breaking Swipe loaded. This is going to be kind of close. In the backline here, we do have our Rhyperior as well. We have our Oblivion Wing reach just before they reach their next Nature's Madness. This should knock out at this point. And can we Sucker Punch down this Rhyperior? We are just barely able to. They reach that charge move that we were talking about, but I can shield this up. They're not going to be able to Mud Slap us all the way down. We're a flying type. We resist that ground type damage, and we can take the game here. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, Yveltal up against a Kyogre. Once again, any matchup like this that's really bad for Shadow Rhyperior that we get to avoid it with is a good lead, and they are staying in, which is also very strong for us right now. As long as we can land that Oblivion Wing once again, we do end up winning this matchup just by shielding once, farming all the way down. But if we don't land the Oblivion Wing, then we can throw the second one, outpace them to that next Surf, depending on how they want to play it out. This time the Kyogre does end up going for that Surf, which is going to do quite a bit of damage if I let it through. Surf is a very powerful move. It's just not a bait move really anymore, which is why Kyogre is so much slower now to get into charge moves. They do give us the full farm down. In comes a Zacian, a Pokemon that we don't have a hard answer to, but I'm very happy getting this Oblivion Wing into them. This is going to put them about at half of their health, and these Sucker Punches are, even though they're being resisted, they do a sizable chunk of damage. I reach another Oblivion Wing. This is going to put them so low, maybe even knock them out if they let this go. So at this point, they're going to be forced to shield this up. I'm going to come in with our Shadow Rhyperior, try to Mud Slap them down, and since I know there's a good chance this could be a close combat, I'm going to shield it up and hope for the best of the back. Play Rough is going to be coming through there, which means they likely actually don't end up having the close combat. In comes a Necrozma. Very smart play that does absorb my energy, but I mean, the thing is, at this point, I don't really care. I get a shield from them. My Mud Slaps are doing so much damage. If I can farm this down with Dialga, I can farm down, have an Iron Head for that Zacian, and I should be able to win this game. If they have Sunsteel Strike, then they're going to have to waste a lot of energy. If they have Iron Head like they just showed, this is going to be a little bit more of an awkward game. They likely reach an Outrage against us, and if that is the case, it's going to do a lot of damage, but I think we can still survive it right now. Outrage ends up coming through, but we can get that full farm down before they can reach another charge move, and I know they're only at one quick attack on the Zacian. I should be able to outpace them here to an Iron Head and win the game using our Dialga as a way to sweep the backline. GG's to our opponent. Shadow Rhyperior putting in so much work as a safe swap, not only in this game, but throughout the entire video. Honestly, this Pokemon is kind of crazy. I'm glad I built it. It was like a $600,000, well, not dollar, Stardust investment. It was basically that much money, though. It was a very hard Pokemon to build, or at least, you know, consider investing in just because of how much Stardust it is to build these Shadows to level 50. But honestly, it's a very strong Pokemon. If you have one that's even remotely good, mine's only a 15, 14, 12, but it's close enough to being a perfect that I was, you know, willing to invest in it, and I'm very glad I did. All right, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. I stream my battles live basically every day at twitch.tv/ItsAXN, so if you want to see live insights into my gameplay, or potentially see my teams early, please make sure to check me out there. There's going to be a link in the description to that. Also, I'm going to upload a lot more videos to the channel, so please make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you again for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.